Okay, so essay number 2. I've gotten better. I think I'm faster. Thank you for bearing with me on this journey of sharing my digital garden and the many essays that I'm writing along the way about the research that I have collected over the past year for Ceremony LM. So the next essay that I'll be talking about, Algorithmic Injustice, a Relational Ethics Approach. And this is by Abeba Birhane, and it's from 2021. And the article that I wrote about it, A Language Model Without Answers. And so the question that I was really thinking about, what if knowing didn't mean answering? What if intelligence wasn't about prediction, but rather about presence? And I've been thinking about Abeba Birhane's work on algorithms and harm, how when things are stemming from this Western rationalist perspective, and we use that same framework to solve the harm that it created, it just perpetuates over and over and over. And we see this in so many areas of our life, but most recently in computer science and AI. It's a technical, rationalist, quantifiable mindset that reduces humanity to data points. And as we know, humans are inherently historical, social, cultural, gendered, politicized, and contextualized organisms. So reducing us to data sets is really reducing all of that complexity and flattening all of that humanity that is within us. This is not a new tension. These frameworks come from the processes that we've seen modeled around us already. Ullman once wrote, "We build our computer systems like we build our cities, over time on top of ruins." We rarely pause to interrogate the ruins. We rush to build, we reduce, we try and cover up what's underneath. And the internet and algorithms have only increased the amount of ruins that we're trying to hide. You know, we've already been seeing this. I am located in Canada right now, and so the erasure of Indigenous stories throughout this land, we just continue trying to cover up and move forward without addressing the core wound. What we lose in the name of speed is nuance. And false accuracy does not mean understanding or progress for us. Moving faster does not mean we are a society that is more understood or well cared for. A tall building does not mean that the foundation is strong. Something might look nice, but as we all know, what's inside is really what matters. The perception can be drastically different. It makes me think about this co-op housing talk that I went to not long ago. The architect, Daniel Roche, was talking about how one of the most significant co-op housing builders in New York City, who built, I think, around 20% of the co-op housing there, really wasn't revered in the architecture world and design world because the outside of the buildings didn't look that beautiful or aesthetic. But because he focused on the inside, he focused on airflow through apartment buildings, he focused on the livability of the space. And when looking at the building outside, you might not have been wowed, but people's quality of life was a lot better, I would guess, than the condos that you see that are the smallest square footage that you could fit somebody into and call it a 1-bedroom. And I get it. We want things to happen quickly. We want solutions. We want better lives for ourselves and others around us. We run faster to try to arrive at somewhere new faster, but nothing new appears unless we confront that ground that is underneath us. The truth is that math and probability work for small problems, but people are not small problems. We're hurricanes, not statues. We are unfinished, dynamic, full of contradictions. We contain irrational possibilities. We shift and we feel. Abeba references Clifford Geertz, who once said, "I've never been impressed with claims that structural linguistics or computer engineering is going to help us understand people without knowing them." And this quote, I want to pair it with Paolo and colleagues. In knowing like loving, What happens is not neutral, general, or universal. Knowers, like lovers, are not abstract subjects, and both loving and knowing take place in the relation between them. And I really want to focus on that, the relation between them. It's the act, the doing in relationship with another that creates meaning and that creates something like love. It's that in between. It's not reading in a book, it's reading and then applying. Patricia Hill Collins further writes about, she says that people do not passively contemplate or grasp the world from a distance. That would be book knowledge, but real knowledge exchange and wisdom and understanding comes from lived experience. Knowing something abstractly doesn't mean that you know it. We come to know through trial and error, through dancing and flailing around, through immersion, through experience. I use learning how to swim as an example, or learning how to love. These things are not ones that you average. They're not automated. They're messy. I could read a million books about swimming, but until I'm in the deep end, holding my breath and moving my arms around, I won't really know where I'm at and where I am capable and where I might need help or how much more practice I need. Humanity and the development of the self is beautiful because it's not predictable and it's not meant to be experienced in isolation. Celine Song, the director of the new movie Materialists and Past Lives, said beautifully in a recent podcast where she was looking at all these books that talk about love. She was like, you ask scientists what they know and they'll give you a long list, but you ask them about their love life and they'll be at a loss. They'll be like, it's a mystery. I don't know what's happening. And I'm really working on this project to emphasize that that mystery and not knowing is not a problem. Maybe the mystery is the point. And maybe that in between gives us so much to work with to create something new. And this is why I resist the idea of using AI to know us. Machine learning remembers the past and it projects it forward. It doesn't create new futures. It detects patterns and it clusters similarity. It remembers a future. It does not create or imagine a new one. Lorraine Daston put it like this: machine learning presents an extreme case of a very human predicament. The only way we can generalize is based on past experience. And yet, our deepest intuitions, especially about justice, can and do change. So what do we do in the world that we're living in? It seems like machines are appearing more and more around us. We stop looking to those machines for answers. We can use them as mirrors, as tools for asking better questions. But instead of prediction, we can prioritize reflection, and instead of outcomes, we can prioritize understanding. Lucy Suchman said, technology is not the design of physical things, it's the design of practices and possibilities. If we begin from the ground underneath us, from the ruins that we try to cover up, if we take those seriously, we might build new practices and not just tools. Colette Pitchen Battle says, equity requires repair, not only response. And when we repair, we can create previously unknown possibilities and not just predictions, repeating the same things we already know. And I do think that this is an area where we struggle and that requires more practices, but it's not impossible, this area of conflict resolution and moving through discomfort. But there are things that we can practice that help us through that. And again, we can do it together, and no one is going to be perfect at it, but we just have to try. A language model without answers is still useful and will still be useful. Not because it knows something that we do not, but because it invites us to think with care, to stay with mess, and to ask, what do we want to create with what we've already been given? What do we want to heal, learn from, and recreate, and not repeat the pattern of? Thank you for listening today. I will have another essay later this week, but yeah, feel free to follow along, and hopefully I will get better and better at sharing in this way.